Welcome to episode 70 of the Practice Squad, a show where we talk about football, shoot the breeze, and make even the replacement refs cringe. I'm your host and fourth string quarterback Jeremy, joined each and every week by my co-host and backup long snapper Joseph. How's it going, man?
Well, since we didn't do an audio test, didn't get to say what I was going to say then, so I'll say it now. I hope you guys get wrecked next week.
Okay, we're going to have to talk about this bad attitude that you have about the 49ers. I don't know where it came from. I think you just maybe woke up on the wrong side of the bed, so we'll go over that later. But we are live right here on YouTube every Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Pacific. We did miss last week's show due to some personal stuff, so we'll be actually off next week as well, and then we'll be back on the Tuesday before the Super Bowl, and then also we're planning on doing a post Super Bowl show as well. So that's the plan right now, but we're on tonight. It's actually 8:32, and we actually started about a couple minutes ago, so I actually think we started on time tonight for the first time ever. So that's awesome. So if you like what you hear and want to support us, don't hesitate to like, share, and if you're feeling extra generous, subscribe. But of course, you can like, share, and subscribe even if you think you could run this show better than us, or if you have a better attitude about the 49ers. So this week, we are going to talk about what was probably the greatest, easily the greatest divisional round that I've ever witnessed, and probably one of the greatest in history. We're going to talk about one of those games, which was ultimately, I think, the craziest of the four. We're going to do Who Wrecked Face this week as we highlight some of the players that had monster performances in the playoffs. And then, of course, we're going to round out our show with some predictions. So let's go ahead and dive into our first segment, which is our game of the week, which we chose to be the epic Bills at Chiefs game, the 42-36 Chiefs overtime win in Kansas City. Man, so a couple of stats for this game before we dive into the play-by-play, or more like a drive-by-drive. There were no turnovers in this game. There were only 4 total accepted penalties, and only one of those was on the Chiefs. There were 53 first downs and 974 total yards. And it was actually, if you don't subtract the sack yards, it was 998 yards. So they were two yards short of a 1,000-yard game. Absolutely insane. A lot of that came in the second half. The offenses in the first half were not bad. It's just that it really got amped up, especially later in the fourth quarter. There was I forget that I wanted to go back and rewatch the full part at the end, but they did say some statistic about the number of points that were scored in a certain span, that it like broke the record for the playoffs or something.
Oh, yeah?
I don't remember what it was, like 24 points in a minute and a half or something like that. It was some crazy amount. That I guess I could deduce based on my notes what it was, but I'm not going to do that live on the show. But well, anyway, we'll definitely discuss the end of the fourth quarter because it was absolutely insane. But before we get there, let's build up to it. So, starting off in the first quarter of this game, the Bills lost the coin toss, so the Chiefs elected to defer. So the Bills started the game with the first drive. And it was a strong drive. There was lots of good rushing. Both Singletary and Allen had some good rushes. And they had 2 fourth down conversions, one of which resulted in a touchdown. And so I really liked Sean McDermott's philosophy of, if we're playing Kansas City, it's a playoff game, we're only going to win with touchdowns. We got to be aggressive, and I thought that was absolutely the right call. So they scored the touchdown, went up 7-0. Then on the Chiefs' first drive, their first drive of the game, was the drive where Mahomes escaped the pocket for the 34-yard run. Yeah, he had a lot of really frustrating escaping the pocket moments in this game. I can't even imagine being someone on that D line, because the thing is, the D line was actually getting really good pressure in the game. They were blowing past the Chiefs O line for most of the game. It's just they weren't able to get to Mahomes. They only sacked him twice, and he had a lot of rushing yards. So he just found ways to make plays despite the pressure.
Does that mean he's a playmaker?
Yeah. Yeah. He's very opportunistic with his with the pressures. So he ended up getting out of pressure multiple times on that drive, and then on one of them he escaped for a rushing touchdown. He dove into the pylon to tie up the game. So that was pretty much it for the first quarter. It was basically 2 drives took up most of the first quarter. Then we jump into the second quarter, and the Bills start off with a pretty great, one of the better fake handoffs I've seen by Allen. He keeps the ball, rushes for a first down. He does get sacked later in the drive, but it did lead to the best punt of the game, which was downed at the 1. And so the Chiefs started backed up, and they were never able to get out of it. They were cornered and eventually had to punt away. And then that gave the Bills good starting field position at around their 40, 45, but then they also had to punt again. So at this point in the game, I was watching this. I did have to miss a little bit of the third quarter because we were shopping at Costco. But at this point, the offenses were a little bit. I guess I was expecting a little bit more scoring from these teams at this deep into the game. So the Bills punt again. Then the Chiefs get another drive going. At this point, you can see the Chiefs' offensive machine spinning. Edwards-Helaire breaks out for a 22-yard run. And then, again, Mahomes, under pressure, makes a play, finds an open Byron Pringle in the end zone, and they score another touchdown. So they're up. Chiefs are up 14-7 at this point. With less than a minute and a half left in the half, the Bills get the ball back, and Allen threads this beautiful pass to Cole Beasley in the middle of the field. And then he also rips off a couple of critical runs. They get a couple more first downs, and he also, under pressure, makes his own play, which was the first touchdown pass to Gabriel Davis. Because I think, the Bills' first touchdown was that also a pass to Gabriel Davis, or was that a run? I don't remember. Let me pull up the box score real quick. So play-by-play, the first Bills touchdown was Devin Singletary 1-yard rush. So this their second touchdown was the first of 4 Gabriel Davis touchdown passes or touchdown receptions in the game. So that tied it up at 14 apiece. And then the Chiefs get the ball back with very little time left, and they get close enough for a decent field goal attempt, but Butker misses the field goal. So both teams walk into the locker room with 14 points. Any comments on the first half?
Oh, I'm just trying to think of some of the plays that were epic. Like Tyreek Hill had an epic play first half. I can't remember. He was very elusive in this game, and pretty amazing.
Yeah, he definitely got buttered up with some oil before this game because no one could tackle him. Like, I think he forced 7 or 8 missed tackles in this game. It was absurd how people were unable to get him. And it wasn't just his speed too. That was the thing. Like, he was just, guys were trying to leg tackle him and it wasn't working out. He made he had a lot of yak in this game. So yeah, his punt return was in the second half. and I think most of his bigger plays were in the second half. So let's dive into the second half. So Chiefs start the second half with the ball. They drive right down the field, but they stall out. The Bills protect a couple of good Mahomes runs, so they have to kick a field goal, and the Chiefs are up 17-14. Then the Bills get stopped on a 3rd and 2 and have to punt. And then just this was the play where McCole Hardman just slips through a bunch of defenders on the sideline. It looked like there was a pile of 6 guys that were about to fall off the sideline, and then out shoots Hardman, and he scores a touchdown on the left side of the field. So he scores. Butker doinks the PAT though. So instead of it being 24-14, it was 23-14 Chiefs. Yeah, it was, man, dude. There are so many Seahawks vibes in this game, just with how Butker was terrible until the one moment it counted at the end of the game, and just the way that they were able to come back against the Allen absolutely playing with his hair on fire late at the end of the game. I mean, it was just it was insane. So then after the 23-14 score on the very first play of the Bills' drive, Allen just chucks it deep to Davis again, who had beaten his defenders, and scores a 75-yard touchdown.
Dude, that ball almost threw that like 55 yards in the air, and he barely not too much effort into that.
Yeah, and it was perfectly in stride too.
Yeah.
So
what made the score on that?
At 23-21 Chiefs.
Okay,
and that closed out the third quarter. Then on the Chiefs' next drive, they punted. And then the Bills punted on a 3rd and 15 sack of Allen. And then that's when the Bills punted after the 3rd and 15 sack, that's when Tyreek Hill got the 45-yard punt return to the Bills 20. And dude, there were so many inexcusable missed tackles on that punt return. I can't even believe it.
In the last 10 to 15 yards. What? How did he get those?
Yeah, the only impressive Bills defensive series in this game was actually this drive, because the Chiefs get that epic 45-yard punt return to the Bills 20. They're threatening to put up another touchdown, and then Dane Jackson, who I didn't even know who Dane Jackson was, to be honest, before I saw this game, had that beautiful sideline leg tackle, and it forced a field goal. So 26-21 Chiefs. Honestly, the way the Chiefs were moving the ball, I was expecting it to be 30-21. So they kicked a field goal. And then here we go again. This is where Josh Allen just went unhinged. So on a 4th and 4 with 2:49 left now in the fourth quarter, so the game regulation's almost over. At the Chiefs 30, the Bills go for it, which was the right call, and Allen escapes pocket pressure and rushes for a first down. Like, guys were diving toward him, he escaped the pressure, got the first down. Then he made a dumb play. This was the one where it was a 3rd and 7, and he's backed up way behind the line of scrimmage, and then he throws that pass to Devin Singletary at like 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage, like in the middle of the pile. That was the weirdest thing, one of the weirdest things in that game. So they lost like 7 yards or 6 yards on that play. He's tackled immediately. Then it's a 4th and 13, but they have to go for it again at this point because there's like 2.5 minutes left, and they're down by 5, and they're on the Chiefs side of the field. So on 4th and 13, that's when Allen throws his third touchdown pass to Gabriel Davis, who was wide open in the end zone. But the reason he was wide open was because the defender tripped, actually. So, touchdown Bills. They go for 2 and get it. So it's now 29-26. So that was huge because it now puts the Bills up by a field goal. And then with 1:12 left, so this is where the back and forth started with all the points. With 1:12 left on a 2nd and 10 at the Chiefs 36, Mahomes completes a pass to Tyreek Hill, who runs 64 yards for a touchdown, which was just under half of his total yards for the game were on that one run, the one completion. So it's now 33-26 Chiefs. And at this point, the Bills are down 49, or they're down 7 points. There's less than a minute left in the game. And so they have to answer. They have to do something. So the Bills start marching down the field. They draw a PI flag, which actually stops the clock at 17 seconds. Now, they still had 2 timeouts left, but the stoppage could have been important. But again, on the very next play, Allen threads the needle again to Gabriel Davis for the 4th touchdown of the game. So with 13 seconds left on the clock, the Bills go up 36-33. And at this point, I said out loud as I was cleaning dishes in the kitchen, this game is not over.
Dude, I was thinking, like, obviously I knew the score beforehand, but just thinking, I was watching it last night, man, how stressful this game would be for, like, watching this game. I mean, just imagine watching this game live, just especially if you're one of the fans, but even just an NFL fan. I mean, that's crazy. Like, it's crazy to think that. It's crazy to think that Allen would have been better for him to throw it to the 1-yard line, instead of getting a touchdown there, because Mahomes had 13 seconds.
It's interesting that you bring that up about throwing it to the 1-yard line because, and I agree with you, by the way, I think that this game took 30 years off of fans of both teams' lives. But interesting you brought up the point about throwing to the 1 because on the Bills' kickoff, they decide to kick a touchback instead of a squib kick. And I think it was Tony Romo that said, why don't they just kick a squib kick? Because, yes, it's a little bit more risky, right? Because there can be a break-off return or whatever. But it takes time off the clock. And it turns out that I think if they had kicked a squib kick, they would have won. Because it took the Chiefs 2 plays to reach field goal range. And I think if they had squib kicked it, that probably would have only given them time for 1. I think there would have only been 7-8 seconds left. And that's not very much time, right? Because you have to leave 3 seconds for a field goal. So that only gives you about 4 or 5 seconds to make a play.
Now, the squib kick, the time doesn't start until the person picks it up, right?
I thought the time starts as soon as the kicker kicks the ball.
Okay, so are you saying, okay, so then, because did they get a touchback?
Yeah, it was he kicked it out of the back of the end zone.
So then how much time was left after he kicked it?
13 seconds.
Oh, there was 13 seconds after, not 13 seconds.
Yeah, there were 13 seconds. Oh, no, I think you're right. I think he does. Yeah, because now that I think about it, if it's a touchback, does time come off the clock? I don't think it does. So it only comes back if it only starts if there's a return.
But the squib kick still would have, like, man, it might have taken a few seconds, but I'm not seeing the logic here, actually. I don't know if it would have guaranteed it.
Well, I guess the question is, if it's a squib kick, I now I have a lot of questions. So if it's a squib kick, does the timer start when the ball hits the ground, or does it start when someone gains possession? Because If it starts when the ball hits the ground, then it does make sense. If it starts when the player gets possession, then the player could just down themselves. And in that case, it would be you wouldn't take any time off the clock, maybe a second. So now the benefit to that, though, is it would have more likely forced the Chiefs back another 10 yards or so, because if you squib kick it and then the player's forced to go down wherever they get it, they're going to be down probably around the 10 or so, not at the 25. Unless so you have a risk reward situation. You either down it at the 10 with 13 seconds left, enough time to make one or maybe two plays to kick a field goal, or you try to return it, in which case you could end up possibly burning all of your time, or maybe burning all except a few seconds, but then maybe not getting in field goal range.
So if time starts when the ball hits the ground, I think the strategy has to be get the ball and down yourself as soon as possible.
Yes, I agree.
But the thing is, because you can willingly down yourself. I was just thinking that would be stupid, but I thought true where someone has to touch you, because then the opposing team would never touch you to get down and to get you over. So
right.
But there's a difference between a voluntary and an involuntary. If you involuntary go to the ground, the defender has to touch you. Because that's
if you involuntarily go to the ground.
Yes.
You mean? Yeah. Yes.
So, all right. So then maybe, unless the timer starts when it hits the ground, then maybe the squib kick wasn't going to do anything. Unless it was the most perfect squib kick ever, and it somehow got past 20-yard line.
Yes, I agree. I'm just trying to do a quick search to see if I can find the answer to our question. Yeah. Okay, so rules of NFL football. This is some no-name site, so I don't know if this is true. This is not from the NFL website, but it does say that on kickoff, clock does not start until the ball has been legally touched by player of either team in the field of play.
Yeah, you know what? When I hear that, unless they kick it to the slow fat guy, then a squib kick actually could have helped the Chiefs. Because then you can get the ball, you can down it like the 30 or 35 without even doing a return, and you take off 1 or 2 seconds.
Yeah, it does depend on the bounce and if the Chiefs are prepared for a squib kick. That's the thing, like You don't always know, because they'll put extra defenders in the middle of the field to catch a squib kick earlier. So yeah, maybe that wouldn't have worked, but I'll do a little bit of research later to see if this no-name website is correct. But anyway, so that is the situation, an interesting discussion to have. So, but regardless, what the Bills decided to do was kick it out of the back of the end zone. So touchback, the Chiefs started at their 25 like normal, and it takes Mahomes 2 plays to reach field goal range. And the second play was just absurd. I don't know how you don't bracket Kelce. I don't understand that. It was just one of those middle of the field plays. There should have been 2 linebackers on him. I don't know what they were thinking. I saw some other social media posts of people that were just baffled by the defensive alignment on that play. So you know he's going to either Hill or Kelce on that play. It's the money play to end the season. He's going to one of his 2 money players. So you got to bracket him, and they didn't do it. So shame on them. They get in range for a 49-yard butt curve field goal, and he kicks it through. So he must be a Seahawk. He ties up the game 36-36, sends it to overtime. And then Chiefs win the coin toss, and they just drive down the field, and Mahomes throws a touchdown pass to Travis Kelce again. And that ends it. The Bills never had a possession in overtime. Now that did spark outrage amongst some NFL fans, mostly Bills fans probably, but I think there were plenty of other. I did see some other fans of other teams that were upset about the fact that we did not get to see Josh Allen play in overtime. And I think you and I have had discussions before about the NFL overtime rules.
Yeah, we agree. We agree.
Yeah, and I think what we've said in the past is that the current rules are not optimal.
No, they're not even adequate, in my opinion.
Yeah. And we don't have to go into that whole discussion again, but I think at a minimum, a system that allows each team to get a possession where you essentially just have to you have to keep pace with your opponent until you can't, and then when you can't, you lose. Is essentially what it would be. So if, for example, the Chiefs go out, score a touchdown, then the Bills would get the ball, and if they scored a touchdown, then the Chiefs get it back, and then you have to match the opposing team's score until you can't, and then it's over. Something like that, I think, would be a lot more fair than the current system, which it definitely does it's biased towards the team that wins the coin toss. The two stats that I saw were overall, including regular season games, the team that wins the coin toss since the new rules were put into place a few years ago, the team that wins the coin toss wins in overtime 53% of the time. And the other stat that I saw was in the playoffs, the team that wins the coin toss is like 20-4 or something like that. So it's in the playoffs especially, it's very heavily weighted towards the team that wins the coin toss. And then there's also the discussion of the fact that offenses and defenses are asymmetric, and so the fact that you get the ball, it's not a fair representation of the best unit on your team, and this idea that like any defense should be able to stop any offense from scoring a touchdown. I don't think that's fair. So there's a lot that goes into that discussion, and I think the rule's terrible, but it is what it is, and the Chiefs won. They won fair and square given the rules. It's just the rules are bad. So that's all I had for the game. My only other comment that I wanted to make was, and this might launch us into a debate. I hope not, because I hope you're on my side with this. I thought Josh Allen was the better quarterback in this game. Not by a lot, but I think that he had to deal with a little bit more adversity than Mahomes did. Not a lot more, but a little bit more. And I thought that his play at the end of the game was, I mean, I haven't seen that often.
I'm actually going to slightly disagree. I'll have to save it for later. I don't have time on the show tonight, so.
Okay, do you want to give just a quick tease?
Maybe overall I can agree with you, but Mahomes had several specific plays that his IQ was just absurd, and I think it was one of the greatest quarterback performances I ever saw. So I'm not going to. Allen had a great body of work, and that was just combined. They had like over 800 total yards, 8 touchdowns, no turnovers. Absurd. But Mahomes had certain jukes, moves, fakes, and throws that just I was just like, wow, what am I watching? This is amazing, this is absolutely amazing. So, it's not a heavy dispute for what you said, but I do think that maybe I'd have to watch the whole like completions and all, even though they didn't have many. But overall, they both played phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah, and certainly I don't in believing what I believe about Allen's performance, by no means does that mean I think that he was way better than Mahomes or that,
Yeah.
they weren't both great, because they were both great in this game, and I respect both of their performances. I think the way I look at it is from the perspective of the defenses that they were playing against, and the fact that it just felt like, Allen scored. Most of their scores were because the Chiefs defense just couldn't defend Gabriel Davis. That was the main thing. But then I felt like with the Chiefs, Mahomes there were so many missed tackles by the Bills defense. I mean, I don't think that number compares at all. I think for the Chiefs, it wasn't a missed tackling issue. It was just that they didn't even have the opportunity to tackle. I mean, Gabriel Davis, I don't think broke a single tackle in that game. He was just wide open and scored touchdowns. Whereas guys like Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, they broke tackles to get what they got. So to me, that puts a little bit more of the onus on, or not onus, but a little bit more of the credit on the skill position players for the Chiefs. Whereas I completely agree with you that Mahomes' IQ was through the roof, and he made some amazing decisions to keep drives going several times. So it's a question then of just how do you balance those factors? And
Yeah.
I feel like it slightly edges towards Allen being the better quarterback. But again, I think it was certainly one of the as far as a dual quarterback performance, the best pair we've seen all year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was insane.
And I'll just say before we jump into Wreck Face, because I don't want to just not mention that there were 3 other games this week. The other 3 games were all buzzer beaters also. The Niners and the Bengals both won on last-second field goals, and the Rams and the Bucks, the Bucks had an epic 2-touchdown comeback, and then the Rams also won on a final field goal. So all of these games came down to the final few seconds, and I don't ever remember a division weekend where all 4 games were decided like that. So it was a phenomenal weekend of football. Obviously, for me as a 49er fan, I have more gray hairs in my beard after that game, I can promise you. That was a hard game to watch. Okay, so let's talk about who Wreck Face this week. So, do you want to start?
I'll start. So we have A.J. Brown for the Titans, 5 receptions for 142 yards, 28.4 average, and a touchdown. And then Cooper Kupp, 9 receptions for 183 yards and a touchdown. And then Bills, Josh Allen, 27 of 37, 329 yards, 4 touchdowns and no picks. And on top of that, 68 rushing yards. And who helped him get those great stats? Gabriel Davis. 8 receptions, 201 yards. That's a 25.1 average per reception and 4 touchdowns. Just absolutely amazing.
So, excuse me, I think they made some comment about the touchdowns. Is that only the second time there's ever been 4 touchdowns by the same receiver in a playoff game? I think they said that maybe one other player had done it before.
Wait, yeah, that was Gabriel Davis' second time doing that?
No, not Gabriel. Like anyone ever in the playoffs, scoring 4 touchdowns in one game.
Not including the Super Bowl? I'm pretty sure Jerry Rice. And
they said I think it was just. I actually think it was Jerry Rice. They said there was one other player who had done that in the playoffs.
And I think it's Jerry Rice.
Yeah, so Gabriel Davis was only the second wide receiver ever to score 4 touchdowns in a playoff game.
That's insane. I mean, it's amazing regardless. if it's more. I would have thought that maybe, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 guys would have done it. And you have those random kind of performances like that, plus maybe some good players. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happened like 7 times, 6 or 7 times. Still, remarkable. But it's pretty amazing that outside of Jerry Rice, he's the only one to ever do it. So wow, if that's the case, then
Well, everything I say on this podcast is fake news. So no, but yeah, we were just talking a few weeks ago about the Jamar Chase performance, right? And that was in the top 15, top 20.
Yeah.
So this has to be as good as that, right? Because Chase had a few more yards, but he had 1 less touchdown.
He had he had 266 yards.
But he had 3 touchdowns, right?
Yeah. So I would say this was a top 25 minimum. Scaled down and see, okay, is it top 20, top 15? But I think just right out of the gates, top 25 performance of all time.
Yeah, and if you were to, you would shave that down even further if you were just looking at playoffs.
Yes.
It would probably be a top 10 playoff performance, most likely. So, yeah, that was really special to watch, and I was super disappointed because I really don't want to see the Chiefs anymore. I just am tired of the Chiefs, so I was hoping to see a Bills championship game, but alas, that was not to be. Josh Allen will get there eventually again. They're good enough to do that. They'll be in a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, but it was just really special to watch that. So did you do all your players?
Yes.
Okay, so I've got Patrick Mahomes, of course, who was 33 for 44, 75% completion, 378 yards, 3 touchdowns, which is a 123.1 rating. But then he also had 7 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. As far as career, that's probably a top 5 performance. I mean, he's had some really good games, but I feel like if you factor in the circumstances, that was a top 5. I would bet you. I didn't go back and look at the numbers, but I would bet you that was a top 5 for him. Then the Chiefs rushing as a whole, their team had 27 carries for 182 yards, which is a 6.7 average, and 2 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill, of course, can't go without mentioning him because he had a great game, 11 receptions for 150 yards, a touchdown, plus he had a punt return for 45 yards. And then for defense, only one player actually really stood out this week. And that was Jeffrey Simmons, tackle for the Titans. Had 8 tackles, 3 sacks, and 3 tackles for loss in there. I forget what it was. I didn't have a darndest thing this week, but the commentator in the game, in the Bills-Titans game, said after one of the sacks later in the game said that it was an onslaught. So his 3 sacks were 3 of 9 sacks of Joe Burrow, who, incidentally, there's another, I guess it was sort of a record broken. There's only been one quarterback in playoff history to have been sacked 8 or more times and won the game. And it was, I don't remember who it was. But Joe Burrow is now only the 2nd quarterback in NFL history in the playoffs to be sacked 8 or more times and win a playoff game. And nobody got wrecked this week. Nobody can get wrecked when every game comes down to the final few seconds. So that would just be dumb for us to say that anybody got wrecked this week. And then like I said, I don't have any darndest things this week. I don't think you do either, Joseph. And then no tricky picks, but I think we're going to need to do, so we're tied at the end of the regular season. We were tied. So we need to do one more tricky pick round with an odd number of picks. And I think the best time to do that is going to be for the Super Bowl. We can do some special Super Bowl picks, I think. I think that would be fun.
I will. I'll do a bunch.
Because we will be having the show the Tuesday before Super Bowl Sunday, so that would be a perfect time to do it. And then we'll tally the numbers in our final show. Okay, so let's close out our show tonight with our predictions for the upcoming championship week. But before we do that, just want to review real quick that on the wild card week, I was actually 6-0, and Joseph was 4-2. I picked Niners, Rams, and Joseph picked Cowboys Cardinals. And then on the divisional week, we actually ended up being different on all of them. And I changed my mind on the Bills pick the night before the game, which turned out to be the wrong call. But I picked Niners and Rams, and Joseph picked Bengals and Chiefs. So we were both 2-2 this week. So that puts me at 177, 104, and 1 for the season, which is 63%. And Joseph at 176, 105, and 1, which is 62.6%. So I'm up by 1, but there's only 3 games left. So we'll see how this goes. And I have a feeling we're not going to pick the same picks this week. Because for some reason, Joseph is really down on the 49ers right now. I don't know why. I really don't know why. So I'll go ahead and do the first game, and then you can do the second game. There's only 2 games. For championship weekend, gosh, I cannot believe, first of all, I cannot believe it's the championship weekend. The Niners are in the NFC championship game. I still have not wrapped my head around that. But here we are, first game of this upcoming weekend. Both games are on Sunday, 12 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Bengals at Chiefs. I hate to say it, but I'm going Chiefs.
Okay, I was gonna say don't pick who you want to win. Pick who you think is gonna win.
No, I'm picking the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm picking the Chiefs as well. Niners, Rams, going Rams. I do think the Rams will win, independent of me waking up on the wrong side of the bed. I'm quite impressed that Stafford went into Tampa Bay and won, and he's had, like I told Jeremy that he's doing this year what Brady did last year. You know, getting on a new team and taking their team deep into the playoffs. Yeah, my point is this: if the Niners and Packers replay that game 10 times, including the win, Packers win 7 or 8 easily. I think that Packers are definitely the better team. Niners had great defense. I'm not going to say it was completely a fluke win, but I don't think I need to see more from the Niners. So if the Niners win, great. That'll prove it. And I hope it's a good game against the Chiefs. If you lose, though, I just hope you get destroyed to match up to make up for the fact that you shouldn't have beat the Packers in the first place. So if you win, great. Earned it. And if you lose, I hope it's by decimation.
Okay, so I'll give my response to that. So I actually partly agree with what you're saying. I think the undercurrent of what you're saying is that the Niners only scored 13 points in Lambeau, and Jimmy Garoppolo did not look good. He had a bad game. That was a bad game. The offense really was sputtering for most of the night. Now the Packers' offense was too, but the Niners' offense was sputtering. The main thing that I agree with is that the Niners' offense so far in the playoffs has not been nearly at the level that it could or should be at. The Niners have some really good weapons on their offense that are not performing at their peak level. I think in most part because Jimmy is not playing at peak level. So from the perspective of an NFL fan that is just watching these games and seeing the Niners pull off these wins, these road wins, I get the perspective is like, yeah, like the Niners offense doesn't look that good, yet they're winning these games. That doesn't feel, something feels off about that. And I understand that. But on the flip side, the defense is on fire right now, sacking everybody. It's amazing to watch. So here's my comment. We're going to need more out of our offense to win the Super Bowl than we've seen. So I don't expect the Niners to even make it to the Super Bowl, let alone win, if their offense doesn't pick it up and play at least at their average level, because they've been playing below average for a few weeks now.
Yeah.
Except for that Rams game. So I'm picking the Niners but it's obviously I want the Niners to win. But I genuinely, there's a lot of factors that go into this. The fact that the Niners are going to take over the stadium, the fact that the Shanahan completely owns Sean McVay. They've won 6 straight. And I don't, yeah, that could be broken, sure. And that's not a predictive stat, but this has always been a good matchup for the Niners, and they're going to be healthy going into the game. And I saw some things from Stafford I didn't like against the Bucs. Like he still made some mistakes. They almost blew it again. I mean, that game should not have come down to a final second field goal. The Rams were up 27-13 pretty late in that game, and Brady almost pulled another epic comeback, which just shouldn't have happened. Rams have been collapsing towards the end of games lately. So I think this is a very close call, and I don't blame anyone for picking the Rams. And I think that the Niners as a whole, I don't think they need to prove anything because they were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago and they have a better team now than they did then. The difference is that the offense particularly just needs to show that it can play at a high level, because there's no way we're beating the Chiefs with the offense that we put out on the field in Lambeau. There's no way that's happening. So we're going to have to play a lot better than we did last week. So that's my pick. So we differ on one. We're the same on one.
All right, we'll see.
Yeah. So that means that if you catch up to me, well, that means that you need to catch up to me, right? Because if you win this week, then we're going to be tied going into the Super Bowl. So then it's going to come down to whether we have the same Super Bowl pick. So
this happened. We had an issue like this in our first or second season. Similar issue
where it came down to our last pick to decide, and it could have been a tie.
I think so, or it was close. Yeah, it's something similar to this. So.
Yeah, we might have had a tie. So we'll see. We'll see.
All right.
But if the Niners win, there's no way you can catch up.
That's fair.
Right. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an exciting. Exciting weekend. So I think that's pretty much it for our show. Like I said at the beginning, for anybody that's just signed on in the last 10-15 minutes, we will not have a show next week, but we are planning on having a show the following week, which is February 8th, Tuesday, February 8th. And then that will be our, we'll recap the championship games and we'll do a Super Bowl preview that night. And then the following night will be our post-Super Bowl night. We're going to repeat a fun special segment that we did last year as well. So make sure you tune in for that. But that's a wrap for tonight's episode. So if you didn't fall asleep during tonight's episode or any of our past episodes, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, as those are free ways for you to support our show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Practice Squad and at Neuralizer_. Just as a reminder, if you've missed past episodes, you can watch or listen to them right here on my YouTube channel. Tonight's show will be available immediately after we go offline. As always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.